All right, so to solve these problems, remember that what we need to do is to isolate the variable. That means get the variable alone. That's going to help us solve it. So when I look at this first one, I've got v minus 5 equals negative 5. So I want to get this variable here, v, and I want to isolate it. But it's not isolated, it's v minus 5. This minus 5 is right here. So to isolate v, I have to get rid of this minus 5. And the opposite of minus 5 is to add 5. But of course, in algebra, all of our equations have to balance. That is, whatever I do to one side of them, I have to do to the other side. So if I'm going to add 5 to this side of the equation, I also need to add 5 to the other side. Now when I do that, I have 5 minus 5 plus 5. The minus 5 plus 5, that cancels out. Minus 5 plus 5 is 0. That's why we added the 5 to it, because now I have isolated my variable v. And what is v equal to? Well, that's equal to negative 5 plus 5. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. So v equals 0. All right, let's take a look at the second problem here. I have x plus 9 equals 12. Well, to isolate x, I need to get rid of this plus 9. And the opposite of plus 9 is to subtract 9. And if I subtract 9 from this side of the equation, I also need to subtract 9 from this side of the equation. So now I have the plus 9 minus 9, those cancel. That's the whole point. By doing that, I have isolated x. So x plus 9 minus 9 would be equal to x. And 12 minus 9 would be equal to 3. So my answer is that in this case, x would be 3. 3 plus 9 equals 12. All right, let's take a look at problem number 3. I've got 6v. That's the same thing as 6 times v. I've got 6 v's, and together they equal negative 18. Well, the opposite of times 6 would be to divide by 6. And if I'm going to do that to the left side of the equation, I have to do it to the right side as well. And by doing that, 6 times v divided by 6, those 6's cancel, and I'm left with just v. And in the other side of the equation, negative 18 divided by 6, well, a negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 18 divided by 6 would just be 3. So I'm going to get v is negative 3. Problem number 4. I've got 7r equals negative 21. Well, 7 is times r, and the opposite of times 7 would be to divide by 7. And if I do that to the left-hand side of the equation, I better do it to the right-hand side as well to keep myself in balance. So I have 7 times r divided by 7, that would just be r. And then negative 21 divided by, oops, why did I make that negative 7? Sorry, that was a mistake. It should just be divided by 7. Don't know why I made that negative. Sorry about that. Okay, divided by 7. And so I've got a negative divided by a positive. A negative divided by a positive is just going to be negative. And 21 divided by 7 is going to be 3. So I've got r equals negative 3. Okay, 2 more. I have 8 times a equals 16. The opposite of times would be divided by. So if I divide by 8 here, I better divide this side by 8 as well. Both sides by the same thing to keep myself in balance. And 8a divided by 8, that crosses out, isolating the variable a. So I just have a. And 16 divided by 8 would be 2. All right. Our final question is -9 equals -10 plus n. Okay, well, how do I get, what's the opposite of adding -10? Well, the opposite of adding -10 would be to add a +10. -10 plus +10, that's going to cancel out to leave my n alone to isolate it. But if I'm going to do that to the right side of the equation, I better do it to the left side as well. So now on this side, the -10 plus 10, that cancels out. That gets me just n, isolating my variable. And -9 plus 10 is going to end up being a +1. So I have n equals 1. Now, if you want to, you could rewrite this as n equals 1, but this is fine too. 1 equals n. They're both the same thing, but if we want to say what the variable is equal to, we could say it first, n equals 1. So for this one, I want to isolate my variable x here, but two things are happening to x. It's being divided by 2, and 1 is being added to it. So to isolate the variable x in this case, the first thing I want to do is I want to subtract 1. Now you could say, well, why don't I want to multiply by 2 to do this? Because right here I want to isolate this thing. That's as close to isolating as I can to start. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 1 to get rid of this 1 here. And if I do that to the left side, I better do it to the right side as well. So now this cancels, and I'm left with, on the left-hand side, x divided by 2 equals -1 minus 1 would just be -2. So now, if I have x divided by 2, the opposite of divided by is to multiply. So instead of x divided by 2, if I multiply this whole side by 2, and again, if I do it there, I better do it here as well. 2 times x divided by 2, those 2's cancel. And I've isolated x. And then x is equal to what? Well, -2 times 2, a negative times a positive is a negative, and 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, let's take a look at problem number 8. I've got this -3n here, and to isolate it, the first thing I'm going to do is add 1 to get rid of this -1. So if I add 1 to that side, I better add 1 to both sides, and I'm left with -3n equals 11 plus 1 is 12. Now, -3 times n, I want to divide by -3. If I do it to this side, I better do it to this side. The -3's cancel. That's the whole point. I've now isolated the variable n. So -3 divided by -3 is just n on this side. And on the other side, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. Oh, sorry, 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I've got n equals -4. All right, for the next one, I have 5 times this whole thing here equals 10. Okay, so we could do this problem two different ways. The first thing that we could do is, I'll do it two different ways. So first I'll do it in red. Okay, over here, if I distribute, I've got 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 8 is 40. Equals 10. Now if I subtract 40 from both sides, I end up with 5x equals -30. And now I have 5 times x equals 30. So the opposite of times x is to divide by 5. So if I divide by 5, these 5's cancel, and I'm left with x equals negative 30 over 5 is just negative 6. So I've got x equals negative 6. Okay. A different way to do the problem, which I'll do over here, is I've got 5 times this whole thing right here equals 10. So if I divide this whole side by 5, and if I do it to the left, I better do it to the right as well, then these 5's cancel, and I'm left with just x plus 8 equals 10 over 5 is 2. If I subtract 8 from both sides, that 8 plus 8 and minus 8, those cancel. So I've isolated my variable x equals 2 minus 8 would be negative 6. So you'll see that I got the same answer either way. I could have done it the way in red or the way in blue. I followed the rules, so I'm going to get the same answer. The only thing is that I think the one in blue is easier if you look at this whole thing as a quantity that's multiplied times 5. Makes it easier to just get rid of that 5 at the beginning. All right, our final question here is I have negative 46 equals negative 5 minus 6. If I were to isolate this piece here by adding 6 to this side, I need to make sure I add 6 to both sides. So the negative 6 plus 6, that goes away, and I'm left with negative 5p on the right side. And negative 46 plus 6, if I add that together, that's going to be negative 40. So now if I divide both sides by negative 5, that isolates the variable p here. Negative 5 divided by negative 5, that just becomes p. And on this side, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 40 divided by 5 is 8. So my answer is 8 equals p, or if I wanted to, I could call it p equals 8.